Marcus Chen had just settled into his evening routine, laptop balanced on his knees. Streaming service queued up, leftover Chinese takeout within arm's reach, when his phone buzzed with an unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him swipe to answer. "Marcus, it's Riley Thompson. I'm so sorry to bother you, but I didn't know who else to call." The voice was familiar but distant, like a song you haven't heard in years. Riley Thompson. His college buddy Jake's little sister, though she wasn't so little anymore. Marcus sat up straighter, muting his show. "Riley, hey, what's going on? Everything okay?" "Not really." Her voice carried a note of barely controlled panic. "There's been a gas leak in my building. The fire department evacuated everyone about an hour ago, and they're saying it could be days before we can go back in. I've been calling around, but everyone's either out of town or their places are too small for an extra person. Jake mentioned you live downtown now, and I just thought—" "Maybe, of course," Marcus interrupted before she could finish explaining. "You can stay here. How soon do you need somewhere to go?" The relief in her voice was palpable. "Are you sure? I mean, we barely know each other. I don't want to impose." Marcus found himself smiling despite her predicament. He remembered Riley from family gatherings and the occasional college party, always hovering at the edges, sketchpad in hand, observing everything with those sharp green eyes. She'd been Jake's artsy younger sister, the one who'd made him tongue-tied. On the rare occasions she'd actually spoken to him. It's not an imposition. "I've got a guest room, and honestly, I could use the company. This place gets pretty quiet. Thank you so much. I owe you big time. I can be there in about 30 minutes. I just need to grab some things from my car. They let us take one bag before the evacuation." After she hung up, Marcus looked around his apartment with fresh eyes. When was the last time he'd had anyone over who wasn't delivering food? The place was clean enough, but it definitely had that bachelor vibe, minimal furniture, generic art. The kind of setup that said functional rather than home. He spent the next 20 minutes doing a quick tidy-up, changing into a decent shirt, and trying to remember the last time he'd actually talked to Riley. It had to have been Jake's wedding, 2 years ago. She'd been between jobs then, talking about maybe moving to Portland for some design opportunity. Clearly that hadn't panned out if she was still in the city. The doorbell rang at exactly 8:30. Marcus opened the door to find Riley standing in the hallway with a small duffel bag and an apologetic smile that made his chest do something unexpected. She looked older, more confident than his memory suggested. Her dark hair shorter and streaked with subtle purple highlights that somehow made her green eyes even more striking. "Hi," she said simply. "Thanks for this, Marcus. Really." Marcus led Riley into his apartment, taking her bag despite her protests. "Make yourself at home. Are you hungry?" "I was just about to order some Thai food. That sounds amazing, actually. I haven't eaten since this morning. Everything's been so chaotic." Riley glanced around the space, and Marcus found himself seeing it through her designer's eyes. "I like what you've done with the place. Very clean lines. Thanks. It's nothing fancy, but it works." He gestured toward the hallway. "Let me show you to the guest room so you can get settled." They walked down the short hallway, Riley commenting on the photography prints he'd hung on the walls. Marcus felt oddly nervous, like he was being evaluated, when they reached the guest room door. He pushed it open with a flourish. "Here's Euro." Oh no. The room was a complete disaster. The bed frame was disassembled and leaning against one wall, the mattress propped up beside it. Paint cans, brushes, and plastic sheeting covered every surface. The adjoining bathroom was gutted, with pipes exposed and tiles stacked in corners. "I completely forgot," Marcus said, running his hand through his hair. "I started renovating the bathroom last weekend and had to tear into this room too because of some water damage. It's been like this for days." Riley peered around him into the chaos. "Wow, you really went all out. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I forgot about this." Marcus felt his face heating up. The couch in the living room pulls out into a bed. It's not great, but it's better than nothing. "Hey, don't worry about it," Riley said, touching his arm lightly. "After sleeping in my car for an hour waiting for news about the gas leak, Anything with four walls and no exhaust fumes sounds perfect. They returned to the living room, where Marcus immediately started fussing with the couch cushions, trying to make them look more comfortable than they actually were. Riley watched him with amusement. "Marcus, relax. I'm not going to rate your hospitality on Yelp." He laughed, despite his embarrassment. "Sorry, I just feel terrible. Offer you a place to stay and then can't actually provide what I promised." Provided exactly what I needed, a safe place to crash when everything went sideways. That's more than enough. While they waited for the Thai food to arrive, they settled into the kind of conversation Marcus hadn't had in months. Diley told him about her work at a small design firm, her latest project creating branding for a local brewery. Marcus found himself talking about his job at a tech startup, the app they were developing to help small businesses manage inventory. "So you're basically making other people's lives less chaotic while your own guest room looks like a construction site exploded," Eddie Riley teased. "Pretty much. I'm better with code than home improvement, apparently." When the food arrived, they spread the containers across his coffee table and continued talking. Riley had this way of asking questions that made Marcus want to tell stories he'd never shared with anyone. About the time he'd accidentally deleted a client's entire database and spent 72 hours straight rebuilding it. It's about his college roommate who'd convinced him to try stand-up comedy exactly once. "You stand up?" Riley nearly choked on her pad thai. "I have to hear this story." It was 3 minutes of the most painful silence you can imagine. "I told exactly one joke, forgot the punchline halfway through, just stood there until someone finally took pity on me and started a slow clap." Riley was laughing so hard she had tears in her eyes. "That's simultaneously the worst and most endearing thing I've ever heard." As the evening wore on, Marcus realized he'd been completely wrong about Riley. She wasn't the quiet, mysterious figure from his memories. She was funny, sharp, and surprisingly easy to talk to. And when she laughed at his terrible jokes, something in his chest felt lighter than it had in weeks. By 10 o'clock, they'd moved to the couch with cups of coffee, still deep in conversation. Riley had tucked her legs under herself, getting comfortable in a way that made Marcus's apartment feel more like a home than it had since he'd moved in. "I should probably let you get some sleep," Marcus said, though he found himself reluctant to end the evening. "It's been a long day for you. Probably a good idea." Riley stretched, then looked critically at the couch. "Okay, how does this thing convert? Please tell me it's more comfortable than it looks." Marcus demonstrated the pull-out mechanism, revealing a thin mattress that had seen better days. Even with the additional length, it was clear the sleeping surface was less than ideal. "It's functional," said diplomatically. Riley sat on the edge of the makeshift bed and immediately sank several inches deeper than expected. "Wow, that's quite a dip. It's like sleeping in a hammock. I can grab you some extra pillows and blankets from the linen closet. That might help with the support." Marcus returned with his arms full of bedding supplies, determined to make the couch as comfortable as possible. He started arranging pillows and blankets, trying different configurations to provide better support for Riley's back. "Let me help," Riley said, reaching for what she thought was a pillow. She held it up and frowned. Marcus, this isn't actually a pillow, is it?" Marcus looked at what she was holding, a decorative throw pillow he'd bought to make his couch look more put together. It was firm as a rock and about as useful for sleeping as a brick. "Oh no." He grabbed the other items he'd brought from the closet, checking each one. "These are all decorative. I only have one real pillow in the entire apartment." They both looked at his bedroom door, then back at each other. "I could run to the store," Marcus offered quickly. "There's a 24-hour pharmacy about 10 minutes away." "Don't be ridiculous. It's almost 11, and you've already done more than enough." Riley stood up from the couch, brushing off her jeans. "I'll make do with a folded towel or something." "Absolutely not. Look, this is silly. I have a king size bed that I barely take up half of, and one perfectly good pillow that we could share. We're both adults here." The words hung in the air between them. Marcus immediately wondered if he'd overstepped, suggested something that would make Riley uncomfortable. "You'd be okay with that?" Riley asked quietly. "I mean, if you are. I just want you to actually get some sleep. That couch is going to leave you with a backache that'll last for weeks." Riley considered this, looking between the sad pull-out bed and Marcus's earnest expression. You know what? It actually sounds really nice. I haven't had a decent night's sleep since this whole mess started, and I trust you. Something about the way she said, I trust you, made Marcus's chest tighten with an emotion he couldn't quite name. Okay then. He started gathering up the bedding he'd scattered across the couch. I'll grab you a t-shirt to sleep in if you want, unless you brought something. I packed in a hurry. A t-shirt would be great. 20 minutes later, they were both ready for bed. Having navigated the awkwardness of sharing a bathroom and getting changed, Riley emerged from the bathroom, wearing one of Marcus's old college t-shirts, which hung almost to her knees. This is really comfortable, she said, tugging at the hem. I might have to steal it. Keep it. It looks better on you anyway. They settled into bed with careful politeness, each staying on their own side of the mattress. The single pillow sat between them like a neutral territory neither wanted to claim. This is a little weird, isn't it? Riley said into the darkness. A little, Marcus admitted. But good weird. Yeah, Riley agreed softly. Good weird. They lay in comfortable silence for a while, both staring at the ceiling. The streetlight outside cast gentle patterns through the blinds, and Marcus found himself hyper-aware of Riley's presence beside him. The sound of her breathing, the warmth, radiating from her side of the bed, the faint scent of her shampoo. Marcus. Riley's voice was barely above a whisper. Yeah, can I ask you something? And you have to promise to be honest. His heart rate picked up slightly. Okay, did you ever think about me? I mean, before tonight. Over the years. Question caught him off guard. Marcus turned his head to look at her, though he could only make out her silhouette in the dim light. Why do you ask? Because I thought about you, she said simply. More than I probably should have, considering we barely knew each other. Jake would mention you sometimes, and I'd always find myself wondering what you were up to, if you were seeing anyone. If you ever remembered that weird girl who used to sketch in the corner at parties. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. You weren't weird. You were ... intriguing. Intriguing how? He was quiet for a moment, gathering courage. You had this way of watching people like you were seeing things the rest of us missed. And when you did talk, it was always something. Worth hearing? I used to hope you'd join conversations just so I could hear what you were thinking. Riley turned toward him, and suddenly they were much closer than they'd been before. Really? Really? I had such a crush on you junior year. Chick never knew, because I was too chicken to do anything about it. You had a crush on me? There was wonder in her voice. Massive. I used to practice conversations with you in my head, trying to think of something clever to say that might make you laugh. Riley was quiet for so long that Marcus started to worry he'd said too much. But then she spoke, her voice soft and honest in the darkness. I kissed someone at Jake's graduation party because I was hoping it would make you jealous enough to finally talk to me.
Oh, you what?
Marcus turned fully toward her now, propping himself up on his elbow. Tommy Brennan, remember him? Watching from across the room and thought, maybe if you saw me with someone else, you might realize you wanted to be with me instead. But you just looked away and started talking to someone else. I looked away because I thought I'd missed my chance. I figured you were into him. They were facing each other now, close enough that Marcus could see the expression on Riley's face. She looked vulnerable and hopeful and slightly amused by the irony of it all. So we were both idiots, she said. Complete idiots, and now what? Riley reached up and touched his face gently, her fingers tracing along his jawline. We're not kids anymore. We can actually have a conversation instead of just thinking about it. Marcus caught her hand in his, pressing it against his cheek. What are we talking about, Riley? About the fact that I've been thinking about kissing you since I walked through your door tonight. The fact that this feels like the most natural thing in the world, lying here with you. She paused, searching his face. About the fact that maybe sometimes the best things happen when your life falls apart and forces you to end up exactly where you're supposed to be. Marcus felt his breath catch. And where's that? Here, Riley whispered, moving closer until there was barely any space between them. With you. When Marcus kissed her, it felt like the conclusion of a conversation they'd been trying to have. For years, soft and tentative at first, then deeper as Riley's arms came up around his neck and she pressed closer to him. When they finally broke apart, Both breathing a little harder, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. I can't believe. It took a gas leak to get us here, he murmured. Riley laughed softly. Best emergency I've ever had. Marcus woke to sunlight streaming through his bedroom windows and the unfamiliar, but wonderful sensation of someone curled against his side. Riley's head was on his chest, her arm draped across his stomach, and her hair was tickling his chin. In the most pleasant way imaginable, for a moment he just lay there, hardly daring to breathe, afraid that moving might wake her and break whatever spell had settled over them during the night. They'd fallen asleep talking, sharing stories and secrets and whispered voices until Riley had gradually relaxed completely against him. Riley stirred, making a soft sound that made Marcus's heart do something acrobatic. She lifted her head to look at him, her hair tousled and her eyes still heavy with sleep. "Morning," she said, her voice husky. "Morning. How'd you sleep?"
Better.
"Than I have in months." She didn't move away from him, which Marcus took as an encouraging sign. "Your pillow-sharing skills are excellent. I'll add it to my resume." They lay there in comfortable morning intimacy, neither rushing to address what had happened between them or what it might mean. Outside, Marcus could hear the sounds of the city waking up traffic. Distant construction, the everyday noise that usually made his apartment feel isolated. Today it felt like a soundtrack to something new beginning. "I should probably check on my apartment situation," Riley said eventually, though she made no move to reach for her phone. "Probably, but not yet, not yet," she agreed, settling back against his chest. When they finally got up an hour later, Marcus made coffee while Riley called her landlord. He tried not to eavesdrop, but couldn't help noticing the disappointment in her voice as she hung up. "Good news or bad news?" he asked, handing her a mug. "Mixed. The gas leak is fixed. But now they're saying there's possible structural damage from where they had to dig up the pipes. Could be another few days before we can go back in." Marcus tried to keep his expression neutral, but inside he felt a surge of something that might have been relief. "That's rough. But you're welcome to stay here as long as you need to." Riley studied his face over her coffee mug. "Is that what you want? For me to stay?" The question was loaded with subtext, and they both knew it. This wasn't just about her housing situation anymore, Marcus said without hesitation. "Not because of the emergency, because of last night. Because I don't want to go back to wondering what might have been." Riley set down her mug and stepped closer to him. "What are you saying exactly?" "I'm saying that maybe we should find out what this is. For real. Not just because circumstances threw us together, but because we want to. Like a date?" "Like a date."
What?
"Tonight?"
If you
"Want. I'll take you somewhere nice. We'll have an actual conversation across a table instead of in the dark. And we'll see if this thing between us works in the real world too." Riley smiled, the kind of smile that made Marcus understand why people wrote songs about falling in love. "I'd like that, but I have one condition. Name it. We split the check. I'm not going to be the damsel in distress you rescued and then have to take care of. I want this to be equal from the start." And Marcus laughed. "Deal. Though I should warn you, I'm probably going to want to hold your hand." Later that afternoon, as Riley sketched at his kitchen table while he worked on his laptop nearby, Marcus realized that his apartment already felt different, more alive somehow. Like it had been waiting for the right person to make it feel like home. "Hey, Riley?" She didn't look up from her drawing. "Thanks for calling me last night, for trusting me enough to ask for help." She did look up then, meeting his eyes across the small space. "Thanks for saying yes, and for having terrible guest room planning skills. That was all part of my master plan, sure it was." She grinned and went back to her sketch. "Lucky for you, I like a man with a good backup plan." Outside, Marcus could see the building where Riley's apartment was, just a few blocks away. By next week, she'd probably be able to go home, back to her own space, in her own life. But somehow, he had a feeling that wouldn't be the end of this story. Felt more like the beginning.